Hello, I am Beth Gray-Robertson, Director of Distance Learning at Halifax Community College in Weldon, North Carolina, which is located on Interstate 95 about 10 miles south of the Virginia state line. I'm thrilled to be a part of the J. Sargent Reynolds Community College Virtual Conference 2009, Teaching and Learning with Technology. My small contribution will center around my personal journey into distance learning, and I've titled this presentation, The Road to Distance Learning, It Isn't as Far as You Might Think. My journey into distance learning began with James Ernest Sykes, my maternal grandfather. For as long as I can remember and until the day he died when I was 13 years old, he told me, Beth, you have to go to school, get a good education so you can go to college and get a good job. He would always add one more thought, enjoy what you do. And my grandfather was right. His words took me through high school, on to college, and 3 degrees in elementary education. But you may be wondering, where does your computer or distance learning experience come into play? Well, my journey to distance learning was a long and winding road, to quote an old Beatles song. After college and 12 years of teaching in the public schools, I resigned from a tenured position so that my husband and I could be on call 24/7 for my parents, specifically for my father who was terminally ill. The thought was that I would be able to return to teaching later. After all, teachers were and still are in high demand. My father died 8 months later at the tender age of 52, and I took 2 months to recover emotionally and physically. When it was time to return to the workforce, I completed numerous applications and went to 4 intensive interviews. It was on the 4th interview that it struck me I was not employable for some reason. So I turned to the interview team and candidly asked them if I was being considered for the teaching position I had just interviewed for. One of the team members was willing to be honest with me. No, he said, you are overqualified and we can hire someone just out of college for a lot less money. Then why the 2.5-hour interview, I asked. We learned a great deal from you about what changes we may need to implement to improve our reading and kindergarten program, they said. Oh, so the next leg of my journey into distance learning was motivated by unemployment and fear. Unemployment is an excellent motivator. From that reality, I volunteered to read a computer manual and learn how to use a computer to help a local insurance salesman develop his clients' files. In turn, he said I could use his computer to generate an income. I had no idea how to get started, but it was worth a try. After 6 weeks of showing up for work, and I use that term ever so loosely since I was not getting paid, I received a call from a friend who asked if I could type and edit a SACS self-study. Sure, I said. And she asked if I could create graphs, charts, tables, and other items needed. Sure, I said. Liar, I thought. But I knew that I could figure it out before the end of the contract period. Thus, my love affair with computers began, and I accepted a part-time position later in a computer lab at Halifax Community College. This was a staff lab open to HCC students who would come and use one of the 14 IBM-compatible computers for word processing. We had some tutorial software, but that was run on Apple computers with monochrome monitors and dual floppy 5 1/4 discs. Anyone remember those? I hear your uh-huhs and your chuckles. Well, we certainly have come far. When the internet was added a couple of years later, no one knew how to use it. Okay, we could get on the net, but what next? I was asked to create a workshop to teach instructors and students how to surf. Sure, I said. And I was asked to teach them how to use the internet to be more productive and scholarly. Sure, no problem, I convincingly spoke. Liar, I thought. But I knew that I could figure it out by the time the workshops were scheduled. In August 2002, staff and faculty were given contracts for the upcoming year. I signed mine and turned it in, grateful to be asked to return. But the president called me to his office just a few days later and asked me to consider accepting the position as the director of distance learning. I told him quite frankly that I loved the computer lab and I didn't know anything about distance learning. He asked me to think about it and I told him I would. Then he asked me to have a seat, which I did. It was then I realized that I was to have a seat and think about it. I said, well, may I go home and think about it, maybe talk to my husband? And he kindly said he hoped for an answer before I left his office. He did, however, promise me that I could return to the computer lab if I were unhappy with distance learning. He only smiled when I said I'd like that in writing. I met with HCC's computer and network manager who gave me a 10-minute introduction to Blackboard, which consisted of, here's your username, here's your password, this is the system admin panel, thank you for your time, let me escort you to the door. And he did, and I felt a little dizzy. We only had about 36 courses on our Blackboard server that semester, and the previous director had already created the courses. My prayer life was instantly enhanced on 2 levels. 1, I was thankful for the director's foresight and wisdom, and 2, I was thankful that I didn't have to do anything until I actually learned how to do something. When folks stopped by to see how things were going, I'd convincingly spout, "Great, super," liar, I thought. I had until December to figure out how to create courses and user accounts, how to enroll students into courses, how to train new instructors, and how to use Blackboard to deliver course content. "Sure, no problem, piece of cake," I said to anyone who asked. I guess you know by now what I was thinking. Beth, you're such a liar. So the elementary school teacher in me kicked in, and I knew that I could only learn by doing. And what if I did break something? The IT guy could fix it, right? I decided to adopt the philosophy of, it's better to ask for forgiveness later than to seek permission first. And away I went, blazing a path, creating handouts, how-to instructions, and creating workshops just like I knew what I was doing. The best way to get something done is to work and act as if you know what you're doing. Others tend to fall in line and follow. Now, 7 years later, I realize that I do have the best job on our campus, and I'm pretty good at it. At this point, I only have about 3 to 4 minutes to make my point for this presentation, and this is it. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, stop it. Make a change. And then, what does this matter? Because when it's all been said and done, the only thing that you'll take with you in the end is what you have stored in your memories. Let everything, your work, your family, your play, let it all be good. Let them all be good memories. More than likely, you have all heeded my grandfather's words. You went to school, you got a good education, you went to college so you could get a good job. But what about the added line, enjoy what you do? When I'm asked if distance learning is for everyone, the person posing the question is usually referring to students. My answer is always the same, 100%, absolutely, positively, unequivocally no. However, if I were asked if distance learning is for every instructor, my answer would be 100%, absolutely, positively, unequivocally no. If your journey to distance learning has been painful, maybe distance learning isn't for you. The debate as to whether or not distance learning is a good way to teach or deliver course content is no longer valid. Why? Because distance learning is here and it's not going away. It isn't the fad that some administrators and instructors thought it would be. What is, is. So the road to distance learning isn't as far as you might think, but it is a long one. But if you're not passionate about it and if you don't enjoy it, take another path. I will not fault you for it, but I'll applaud you for it. However, if you are completely honest with yourself and determined that you are a mediocre, less than average, or simply plain awful distance learning instructor, what are you going to do about it? If you cannot opt out, like tell your boss, I'm not teaching any distance learning courses anymore, then you need a plan. Now, I like a plan. Identify the obstacles that you face and seek solutions that you can live and work with. I usually find that weak distance learning instructors simply do not have a plan. They lack organization. After all, effective instructors are masters at thinking on their feet in face-to-face courses. However, distance learning courses take that away from us, or does it? We have to figure out how to get our personalities across to students without the benefit of seeing them in the classroom setting, how to communicate to them the passion and zeal we have for the topics we discuss, how to stir them to be scholarly and produce meaningful work. Yes, it's a challenge. However, we cannot let those become barriers or stumbling blocks. There are solutions. Let's ferret them out. I will be on the Plum Road campus April 24th to talk about distance learning obstacles and how to overcome them. That face-to-face presentation will be a continuation of this exchange, and I hope to see some of you there. In the meantime, ease on down the distance learning road and blaze your own path. Thank you.